Guys, Mr. Morris here. I'm just making a video instruction guide to show you how to create a graph based on the data that you collected for Mission 1, Option B. So this is the same paper right here that I have that you all filled out on your doc, all right? It's the same exact thing. What we're going to do is we're going to take this information that you followed the instructions, you found the average high temperatures for 2 cities, and we're going to take that information and put it onto a graph, all right? So, this is my first page of data. I chose Stanhope as the city I wanted to research to find out what the average temperature is around here. So as you can see, I followed the directions. I went to weather.com, and I found the average high temperature for all of the months of the year. So these aren't super surprising, right? In January, it's an average high of 36 degrees. Blech. In July, it's an average high of 82 degrees. That sounds awesome. All right. So these should look kind of familiar to you. The other city that I chose to research was Nairobi, Kenya, which is one of the options that I gave you up here that you can choose from, or you can pick any other city that you want to know what the temperatures are like. So I did the same exact thing. I went to weather.com, I looked at the average high, and I found this data for Nairobi, which is really interesting. You know, you'd think of Africa as being super hot all the time, but I see a lot of 70s here. And I see a lot of numbers that are really close to each other. But we're not going to worry about that quite yet, all right? We're going to put this thing onto a graph. So, you'll see here I have the graph paper that you have. It's the exact same thing, totally blank, all right? I'm going to show you the steps to take here to get this thing done. The first step, easiest step, name. I'm Mr. Morris. Nice to meet you. All right, so I have my name on there. That way I know whose it is. Great. The next step, and folks, before I even get into this, I just want to tell you this video should be used as an instruction guide for you. So you can watch it, you can go back, you can pause it, you can play it, you can move it forward, you can move it backward. I want you to pretend like I'm sitting right here with you doing this graph with you. So everything I do on here, you can do right on your paper too, all right? Just obviously it's got to deal with the city that you chose to research. One of those cities is Stanhope, so that information is going to be the same. So the first thing we have to do is we have to label our graph, all right? We have an x-axis label and we have a y-axis label. An axis on a graph. So I know we've talked about an axis on the Earth, which is that invisible line that goes through the Earth. An axis on a graph is a line that goes right through a graph. So we have a bunch of lines going down, all right, and we have lines going across. Now, there's an x-axis and a y-axis. This line going across, side to side, back and forth, left to right. Oh yeah, that is called the x-axis. And I'm circling it right here because it's right there on your paper. That's the x-axis. The one that goes up and down, that is called the y-axis. All right? That's the y-axis right there. There's a super easy way to remember this one, guys. If you make a y, you have a line going straight down, right? Okay. We are going to label these axes. You are going to label them exactly as I label them. Across, we are going to be measuring time. We're going to be measuring time in months, right? Because you had to look up January, February, March, all the way through the year. The other side is the other thing that we're measuring. So if one was month, the other one is going to be the temperature. So we're going to write right here on the y-axis, temperature. And then I'm making this nice and big so that you can see it in degrees Fahrenheit. All right? You can write those two exact things on your paper as long as you are doing option B for mission 1. Now, we have to label our graph so we know what the heck we're looking at. Down here we have our time, our months, so we need to write our months across this graph. We want to space them out evenly. So the way that this is set up, we're going to put a month every 2 lines going across. All right? Do this exactly like I do it. So we're going to start here at 0, no month, just 0. We're going to count 1, 2, and we're going to write January. We're going to start at January 1, 2. We're going to write February. I'm just using abbreviations, and you can tell I'm writing small. You want to make sure you write small here, guys, so that things don't get crammed. We're going to count over 1, 2. I'm going to write March. All right? And I am going to pause the video for a second and just keep labeling down so you don't have to watch me do every single one. And voila, we have every month labeled. All right? So you can see here, we start January every 2 lines, right? January 1, 2, February 1, 2, March 1, 2, April, and we go all the way June, July, August, September, October, November, and December. All right, so we have every month labeled across the x-axis of our graph. All right? Now, we are going to label the temperatures up the y-axis. So we want to make sure that the space between all of our temperatures is the same. Guys, we don't have to write every single possible temperature, right? Because we could have a whole lot of those. We want to count up by 10. So the way that we're going to do this, if you look at the directions, it tells you to start, we're starting at 30. So this time, with the months, we counted every 2 lines, right? We labeled every 2 lines. We're going to label every 3 lines going up. So again, do exactly what I do here. 1, 2, 3 lines up, we're going to write 30. All right, so you can see we started down here at 0, 1, 2, and on the 3rd line we wrote 30. Now we're going to keep going up. We're going to count another 3. 1, 2, 3. We're going to write 40. Next, we're going to count up. 1, 2, 3. We're going to write 50. Do you see a pattern here? We're going to keep going up just like that until we get to 100. I'm going to do that right now, and I will see you in a second. Alrighty, scientists, so I've labeled up the y-axis, all right? I counted up 3 boxes, and I wrote every 10th degree here, every 10 temperatures, just 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Your graph should look exactly like this so far, okay? If you chose mission B, your graph should look just like this, just, with a different name up there. All right, now comes the fun part. Now we get to put our data onto the graph. So we are all going to start with Stanhope or Sparta, whatever the local city is that you chose. So I want you to open that doc up, take a look at your temperatures. All right, I'm looking at mine right here. Check it out. In Stanhope, in the month of January, the average high temperature is 36 degrees. So what we are going to do is we're going to go to our graph. We're going to find January, and we're going to make a dot at about 36 degrees, according to these numbers right here. All right? So here's 30, here's 40. 36 is right about in the middle. It does not have to be exact. So we're going to make a nice dot right in the middle. All right? So January is about 36 degrees. Next, take a look at February. We all have this same number. It's 40 degrees. That's an easy one. We're going to find February, and we are going to put a dot on the 40-degree line right here. All right? Next, we're going to find March. The average temperature in March is 49 degrees, getting warmer. I like it. So we're going to find March. We're going to go up. We're going to go almost to the 50-degree line. All right, and we're going to make a dot for March. You might see a pattern starting here. As it gets more and more into spring, the dots get higher. That's showing the temperature's getting a little bit warmer. All right, we did 3 here. I'm going to do the next 9. All right, and then we'll come back and we'll take a look at the Nairobi graph. And all the data points for Stanhope are in. If you look at these dots, it kind of looks like they go up and then come on down, right? It's kind of interesting. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take a marker, pick a color, any color you want. I'm going with blue for Stanhope. And we are going to connect the dots. Okay, guys, cool. So you can see here how in the months like January and February had the temperatures are lower, and then zoop, July, August, June, look how warm those temperatures are. And then as fall comes around, our temperatures drop back down again. Makes sense, right? All right, cool. So now we are going to move on to our second city. This is the one that might be different for people, all right? So you can't label exactly as I do here, but hopefully you get the idea. I chose Nairobi. So this is my data for Nairobi, right? So I'm going to do exactly what I did with Stanhope. I'm going to look at January, and I'm going to label a dot at about 78 degrees. That is a pretty nice January. So I got January. At about 78, I make a dot. Oh, yeah, that is nice and warm looking. I look at February. I got 80 degrees in February. Whew, toasty. I look at March. I've also got 80 degrees in March. All right, I'm going to label the rest of these Nairobi data points, and then we'll take a look at how it compares to Stanhope. Okay, scientists, so I labeled the rest of the Nairobi data points here. All right, you can see these dots, they don't quite go up and down as much as the Stanhope dots. We're going to take our other color. I'm choosing green for this one. And again, we're going to connect those dots. So now we have made two lines, which is why this is called a line graph, right? So you can see here, in Stanhope, the temperature in winter is low. It gets warm in summer. It goes back down again for the next winter. But in Africa, in Nairobi, Kenya, look at this temperature. It doesn't really get that low. And it's not super, super hot either. It kind of stays really consistent throughout the year, which is because it's close to the equator. So it receives about the same amount of, tilt toward the sun and the same temperature kind of year round, which is really interesting. Now, we have our lines, we have our data, we can see, we get an idea of the temperature here. We just have 2 more steps to go, and then we are done. So the first is we need to label this thing, this little box up here, we call it the key. Sometimes we call it the legend. And that is just to tell people that look at this graph what the heck it is you're showing them. You made it, you know what it means, but if you give it to mom or dad or somebody that doesn't know what it is, they're going to have no idea what they're looking at. So what we want to do is we want to take our markers that we used. Blue, if you remember, that was Stanhope. I'm going to make a little blue blob up here. And I'm going to write Stanhope next to it. So I know that those are the average temperatures in Stanhope, New Jersey. Then I'm going to take the green. And I'm going to write Nairobi, because that's the other city I researched, okay? There we go. So that's my key. So now I know if I look at this graph and I didn't make it, what the heck it's saying. Last thing we need to do is we need to make a graph title, all right? So we have 2 pieces of data. We have temperature and we have time. So we are going to title this Temperature in each month of the year. All right. I wrote it nice and big. You guys can write this exact title if you'd like. If you would like to come up with your own, you can. You just need to make sure that you mention that it's about temperature and it's about time. All right. But you can get creative, or you can just use this one. And folks, we have done it. This is our line graph. This is now some scientific data that we can look at comparing the temperatures in Stanhope and in Nairobi, 2 places that are in totally different spots on the globe, and how that affects their temperature throughout the year. So if you are at this point, awesome job, congratulations. If you just watched this video for the first time, go back, work through this video when you're doing your graph, pause it, play it, pretend like I'm right there with you, okay? Please use this as a resource. All right. Peace.